thanks very much to Sean. And first, let me say that I too condemn. I think some of the extreme things that have been said on both sides. Just before I get into it, I think it's important. Here you have your second Yank coming out to talk to you about the Irish Seanad. I think it's important to put that in context, and I'm supposed to say who I am and why I care so deeply about the Seanad and why I care so deeply about this vote on Friday. And that's because I believe in politics. And I'm from a Boston Irish political family. My great uncles were city councilors. My great uncle was an attorney general of Massachusetts, also lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. My uncle Brian was Brian Donnelly of the Donnelly visa program, which allowed thousands and thousands of Irish people to travel to the United States in the 1980s, the last time the economy was in horrible shape. So politics is in my bloodstream. It's deep in me. I believe in politics, and I don't think politicians are bad. And I refuse to go along with that line of reasoning. Now, Seanad abolition, it offends all of these things that I would hold dear. A couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to speak at the John F. Kennedy Summer School, where we spent a lot of time talking about the Kennedys and all that they did for politics, and their belief in the power of deliberative democracy. Indeed, Senator Edward Kennedy, who's known as the Lion of the U.S. Senate, okay, which has been described as a hyper-deliberative body that moves at glacial speed, yet he made things happen in the United States Senate. Now, of course, I understand U.S. politics are apples and oranges when it comes to here. But still, all of us who went to that summer school were buoyed by the exuberance about politics and what politics can be. When I think about the government's campaign to abolish Seanad, that buoyancy I felt at the conference immediately dissipated. Because let's put it to you this way. The bottom line is this, and my opponents cannot disagree with this because it is fact. Okay? Seanad abolition, which was dreamed up by the Taoiseach over a short period of months. He changed from speaking eloquently about what a Seanad could be to saying we need to get rid of it. And what will we have if the voters choose to abolish the Seanad on Friday? There is no disputing this. We will have a very strong executive, and we will have a very weak parliament. And I suggest to you that that's not good for democracy. Now, I suppose the key points are, how have we gotten here? Okay, how has the government gone about doing this? And I think some of the points that Sean raised in his talk, I want to refute. First is the behavior and the conduct of this government today. Not because I think it's unique to this government, but I think it's actually mirrors what past governments have done. This government was elected in 2011 with a huge majority, okay, promising a democratic revolution, promising to change politics. Well, they've been a miserable failure, a self-admitted miserable failure. Their own chief whip has said that their performance has been deplorable on that front. We also see that when 6 of their own members dared to stand up on conviction, dared to stand up for what they believe in, what happened to them? What did the Taoiseach do to them? Not only did he strip them of their party, their place in the parliamentary party, strip them of their speaking rights, he's now said they can't even think about standing for re-election in the future. Okay? That's very, very deeply worrying to me as someone who would also identify himself as a Democrat. Now, okay, they've blown their chance on dollar reform. They've blown their chance on political reform. So what are they saying they're going to do? They're going to reform the Seanad. But wait a second. The only way then we'll get to dollar reform is if the voters abolish the Seanad first. Okay? So they're putting us in that position from the top. The second thing, okay, and this is extraordinary to me, the polls show that 93% of the Irish people are opposed to the Seanad as it's currently constituted. Yet the government takes the astonishing position that if the people vote no, okay, if they say no to Seanad abolition, they will do nothing. They will do nothing to reform what they call themselves a rotten borough in which 93% of people think needs reform. Okay? That's a key point. It's really important to see what the messengers are saying about this and the posturing that goes into it. It's very difficult. So one of the points that Sean has made is that we can't have reform. There won't be reform if people vote no. The reality is, and this is a key point, look at the real politique of this in power politics, because this is the one thing this government understands. If there's a referendum held, and the Seanad has been subjected to the most scrutiny it ever has been before. If the government loses a referendum, and in time they do nothing on the Seanad, okay, if they do no reform, that will be a political liability hanging around like a noose around their neck going into the next general election. So it's a fallacy to think that Seanad reform will not happen if the people vote no to this. Okay? So that's the first thing, just how this government has behaved particularly. The second point, and Sean mentioned, I think I agree with Sean, I give Sean a lot of credit. Sean and some others in the Seanad abolition movement, who said that the government's posters, fewer politicians, save 20 million, are a bad way to go about this, that there are better reasons for abolishing the Seanad. Well, that's fine to be high-minded in that sense, and I'm glad to hear that from them. But as somebody who's been out canvassing on a day-to-day basis, formally and then informally discussing it with people, why are they voting to abolish the Seanad? It's because, as one man said to me, practically take me by the throat, that shower of fuckers, okay, screamed it at me, okay? The government is cynically playing on people's worst instincts. Okay? People are hurting. I can understand why people are hurting. I can understand why they're against politicians. But the government is playing to that. And think about this for a minute. Think about why a politician or a political party themselves, what are they saying when they say fewer politicians is a good thing? They're saying something very, very profound about themselves. They're implying that there's something wrong with themselves. And that space they're creating to mobilize and give voice to that anti-politician, anti-democracy sentiment is very dangerous and very worrying to me. So while there's a lot of high-minded types that we're hearing, make no mistake about it, if the Seanad is abolished, it will be because of that playing to that cynicism, playing to that anger. I don't think that that's good for our democracy or for our politics. In terms of the third point I want to make is about defeatism. Okay? And Sean keeps saying that there's no consensus on reform. Well, the fact is, yes, there are a number of plans. I think that's healthy, that there are a number of ideas about reform. The fact is that there's far more that overlaps in those plans and far more in common than there is that distinguishes them. Okay? There's far more in common. And I think some of the ideas that are coming out, like, for instance, gender equity, like a vote for every citizen will have a vote. And although Sean is right, the point is, the vocational system, there are issues with that. Every citizen will have the opportunity to pick a panel and will be able to vote on it. So gender equity, universal suffrage, votes for immigrants. Okay? We know how many thousands of young people are leaving this country every year. Votes for immigrants, giving them a right to have a say in the affairs of the country that they love so much but have had to leave. Okay? Furthermore, okay, when it comes to defeatism, okay, one of the things we keep hearing is we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't do this. We can't do it. It's not going to happen. That's really defeatist. For instance, on the issue of immigrant voting, dozens of countries around the world allow that to happen. Why can't we do it? Why are these things dismissed out again? Why is the Seanad abolitionists saying we don't want a bicameral system. We want a unicameral system. We don't want any of these things. We don't want democracy to flourish. We want it to function. Okay? A renewed Seanad, a reinvigorated Seanad with the reforms I've mentioned will flourish and can transform Irish democracy. The last thing they say about us, who want a reformed, a renewed Seanad, is that we're fantasists. Okay? That we're not rooted in the real world. Well, okay, that's one way of saying it. I think it's a cheap way of saying it. But I think, to paraphrase my friend from Democracy Matters, Professor Gary Murphy of TCU, who knows politics in this country as good as anybody, I think it's a really good idea to dream. I think we have a dream for what a transformed, renewed Irish democracy can be like. I think if you vote no on Friday, then you'll see that, and you'll see a reformed Seanad. Give it a chance. Thanks very much.